Hi again, Captain Peter Cutsie, and this is part three of the manual reversion, loss of hydraulic system A and hydraulic system B. Mm, just to wrap up this particular topic, we're going to have a little look at the performance that I talked about in the first two videos. In the event of a go-round, you would want to certainly know how to handle the go-around procedure. It's the same as a normal go-around with two engines operating, except you are going to be working very hard at controlling the aircraft, as we mentioned already, and you've got a few considerations to talk about in your briefing before you do the approach. In the event of a go-around, you want to make sure that you don't call for gear up to start with because the gear is down and you are unable to retract it because you extended it using manual gear extension. That's number one. Number two is that you are going to be able to retract your trailing edge flaps, but you'll be using the alternate system. That is, the pilot monitoring will be using the alternate system. And remember, in the previous briefings, it takes 2 minutes to actually extend flaps from 0 to flaps 15, and 15 back to 0, probably 2 minutes also. And remember the limitations on using the select switch for the extend and retract switch that we discussed in video number 2. So you want to make sure you brief on that, allow time for that, don't exceed the maximum flap limit speed. Now, going en route, you now have drag as far as the gear is concerned, and you also have drag as far as the leading edge flaps are concerned. As you know, you'll be restricted to flight level 200 because you've got flaps extended. So you're not to exceed that altitude. Let's just go into the go-around procedure. What you're seeing on screen now is a small excerpt from what I put out in video strictly on go-around procedure. Yes, the FCTM is correct, and yes, I'm sure the way your instructor taught you and the way all manuals say a two-engine go-around is go around, flaps 15, positive rate, gear up. All right, that's the simple way of doing it. You want to follow that exactly, but be a little more precise in how you handle it and talk about what you're going to do during your approach briefing, as I mentioned before also. So pilot flying at the same time would actually push the toga switch and at the same time call go around, set, go around thrust. And then he or she would ensure or set sufficient go around thrust while rotating smoothly towards 15 degrees of pitch attitude. The pilot monitoring would verify the rotation to the go-around attitude and that thrust increases and there is sufficient for the go-around or just thrust as needed. Both pilots are going to check their FMAs and ensure they have go-around and toga enunciated in the auto throttle and pitch modes, respectively. That is all part of it. And then the pilot flying will call for flaps 15. And the now, and you will have briefed on this, the pilot monitoring will select flaps to 15 using the alternate system. And it's going to take a little longer to do that. So allow time for that. And during all of this, the normal go-around procedure would be the pilot monitoring would call positive rate on the barometric altimeter, and the pilot flying would verify the positive rate and call gear up. But you're going to have to modify this, as I mentioned before. Do not call for gear up. Don't start reaching for the landing gear lever. and do silly things. So you have to be well briefed on how you're going to handle the gear, lever, and also the alternate flap retract switches. Okay, so everything that we're looking at here is for a normal go around with normal hydraulics, but I just wanted you to look at the way I'm suggesting that you go around, following the FCTM, and I'm sure your company would appreciate following something similar to what you're seeing on screen. All right, let's go now to a word on, we now know we're not going to go any higher than flight level 200. The gear down chapter in your QRH is something that you should be looking at, and before any sim session or before flights, you should be well prepared to know where to go. Now, here is a long-range cruise altitude capability at max cruise thrust, 100 feet per minute residual rate of climb if your weight was 75,000 kilos. So your altitude, your pressure altitude at ISA plus 10 or below would be 21,100 feet. Well, that's kind of good. We're using the example of 75,000 kilos, which is pretty heavy. Max takeoff weight for some NGs is 79,015 kilos. So flight level 211, or we're restricted to flight level 200, but that's close. So let's have a look at some figures for flight level 210. You're going to be at flight level 200 and 75,000 kilos. You're looking at a fuel flow of 2,101 kilos per hour per engine. All right, so that works out to be 70 kilos per minute total. All right, so the reason why I'm saying that is you can't use the FMC with the gear down and with the situation you have with the flaps out. It's unusable as far as looking at fuel planning. That's why it's important you know where this is. All right, so we've picked flight level, something close to flight level 200 because that's our restriction. Ground distance to your alternate. This is a neat chart. Look at it. It's very well done. And here we have a ground distance, and here we have to figure out the air distance if we have a headwind, and we have a tailwind component. This is what the air distance would be for a comparable 400 nautical miles ground distance. So we take the air distance and go here with the air distance, and then look at what we're going to have for a fuel flow per hour per engine, and the time. So this chart is invaluable to have a look at. Now, anything either side of those weights, this particular adjustment is base is at 60 with no correction, and lighter, of course, less fuel required, and heavier, more fuel required. So know about this chart and know where to go for it is important. All right, and you have other things in that holding chapter which are very important, and your descent from your altitude, time in minutes, and fuel used, and also on the approach. So, or I should say holding. So it's good to know how to get to it quickly in the paper copy, or also earmarked or favorite the selection in your iPad, depending on how your company has your iPad set up. Okay, let's go to another chart that you were referred to using the checklist as we looked at in part 2 of this series. And landing distance, loss of system A and B at flaps 15. Depending on what you're using, either pounds or kilos, we're assuming we're using kilos, and this is metric. Listen, don't forget, this particular chart here is in meters. So it says M, so I put it in meters here. So just to remind you, it's meters. So a lot of JEPI charts, your JEPI charts are in feet, and Lido are in meters, and there may even be tailored JEPIs to meters, whatever. But just be careful you know what you're using, whether meters or feet. And here's your dry runway requirement. And so here's the chart that you're going to use and talk about with respect to your landing distance. So those are the items that I was talking about in my previous videos. And I hope you enjoyed the very brief 3-part series on loss of hydraulic system A and B. If you want a briefing online with your partner or alone, please contact me at the information below. The information in yellow up here will be what you would go to after you communicated with me as far as going into my briefing room. Enjoy your flying, stay passionate, stay professional. Thank you. See you on my next video. Exciting times coming ahead.